Good morning. Welcome to this morning's Adult Faith Forum. You might have a question bouncing around in your head. If not, I'm going to plant one. When we talk about Adult Faith Forum, we're going to be hearing about Nepal. How do those two things go together? Well, in the sermon this morning, we were invited to consider how it is that as ambassadors of Christ's grace, mercy, and love, how do we recognize and serve the neighbor, even those that we may not know very well? How do we do that? Well, maybe it begins with a little bit of curiosity. So if you are a little bit curious about Nepal, you've come to the right place. I'm going to introduce our speakers here in just a second, but there's one more introduction that I want to make. We don't do this, of course, every Sunday, but we have Marilyn Teedy, grandma, mother-in-law, all that sort of good stuff. Marilyn, thank you for being here this morning as well. It's my great pleasure. You know Pastor Connie Teedy, perhaps. Pastor Connie will be guiding us along with Nikesh and Linnea that you know as well. Please welcome our guests this morning.
I just figured something out after how many years of ministry that when you do a presentation and you have other people that have gone with you, you go over to their house, you bring supper, and you say, now I was thinking, can you pull out your laptop and start kind of typing? To which Nika said, typing? He said, well, here's what I'm thinking. And then he did the whole slideshow. So he's awesome. But I just, a little bit of intro that they'll share with you later. But it was a pleasure for Mark and I to be able to go with Linnea and Nikesh on this wonderful, eye-opening, fabulous trip to meet not only his family, but also to just kind of share those special places in his life. So I'm going to hand it over to Nikesh, who's going to do some of that introduction.
Hello, everyone. So I was asked by Pastor Connie to introduce myself because some of you may not know me as well as you know Linnea and herself. So as we go through the presentation, I'm going to walk you through some of my early childhood and some stories and my hometown where we grew up that Linnea and our parents were able to see alongside me, and that was amazing trip we had. So I'll just get started.
You got your lovely assistant. We'll get there.
So the country of Nepal, as you can see, it's a pretty gigantic country in Asia, which is not true because it's a very small country located between these massive China and India. It's actually smaller than the state of Minnesota. The Nepal is very diverse. You can think of it as three sections. The top section is more mountainous, where you can see more of the Himalayas. The mid section is more temperate region, and the southern part, which is closer to India, is more flat and it gets really hot in the summers. The flag of Nepal is one of a kind because it's the first flag that's not rectangle. So it's composed of two triangles. We got the moon and the sun, which represents like the yin and yang. So the moon is more representative of the cooler, calmer aspects of Nepal, like the Himalayas. And the sun represents more hotter, intense areas, like the southern part of the lowlands. It also means the longevity, meaning Nepal will exist as long as the celestial bodies, the sun and the moon, exist in the sky. So I wanted to introduce my family because we'll be seeing a lot of these people in the rest of the presentation. We got my dad on the left side, my mother, myself, Connie, and Linnea there. The right picture is where we celebrated one of the biggest festivals in Nepal while we were there, called Dasai, and Linnea will go through more of that in the later presentations. But that's my parents giving blessing as part of the tradition to my in-laws. Here are some more pictures of my Nani, which is my native language, meaning it's my mother's side, grandmother. And she really loved Linnea, and just spending time with her and chatting, even though we had language barriers. But I was the one who was doing all the translations, but you didn't really need a lot of translations, because I mean, most of the things that came out of her mouth was just blessings and just love and affection. Here are my aunts, and you can see Linnea the giant in among all my aunts. So the picture on the right is when we visited my village, which we'll get into more in the next presentations. On the left is my dad's elder sibling. Going back to the village, the picture on the left is more recent, when we visited from our trip, and apparently that's the room where I was born. So it was pretty amazing to go back to that and see. Right now, so my grandmother is no longer with us, but that's where she raised my dad, and I grew up for the first 3 years of my life. Right now, the home is, nobody lives there, but my dad still takes care of the house and just keeps it for sentimental reasons, of course. And when we visited my village, while we were there, you can see there are a lot of kids and people just hanging around the house and playing games. These are some pictures of the some land that my dad still owns. It has been passed through generations, and as you can see, he's a pretty proud owner of the land. He has a lot of people in the community that he offers the land to grow crops, some rice, vegetables, and a lot of other crops that they all share. Here are some pictures of Mark with his best friend. That's a water buffalo. It's a pretty common domestic animal in the country. They are raised for milk, and buffalo milk is one of the most common form of milk that you can get. It's really thick and creamy. It's a bit different than the milk that we get here. But while we visited the village, we saw so many animals and buffaloes just roaming around the village, and we got to see them in person. The picture on the right is also my aunt's house, they still live in the village, and I had very little memory of the house and the village, so it was pretty amazing to see all that again. As I said, I wanted to go through some of my childhood pictures as well. That's so I have one sibling, my elder brother, although he has always been shorter than me. As I mentioned, we grew up in the village where my dad raised us for the first 3 years. We moved into the town called Parasi, where I spent the most of my life growing up. And that's where, during our trip, that's where we spent most of the time as well. And when we moved to Parasi, the picture on the left is where we had a small one-bedroom, it's like a one-room apartment pretty much, even smaller than a studio apartment that you can get here. And we, 4 of us used to live there for a couple of years in sharing this single room, a single bed. My mother and I found shelter on the floor somewhere. After a couple years, my dad bought some land in Parasi and built a house from scratch that you can see on the right. And I have very fond memories of the house because I have seen that house built from scratch, and all the changes that we saw once we were there. It's yeah, all the changes have been very drastic. Little Angel School is where I went to elementary school and up to grade 10 in Parasi. The picture is on the left is, yeah, it's a pretty funny memory I have because as you can see with the clipboards we were on our way to take examination. And my dad thought it would be a good idea to stop by a photo booth to capture the memory because back in the days, as you know, we didn't have cell phones and all the fancier cameras that we have right now. So he wanted to, yeah, capture that memory. And on our way to the school, we're running out of time, but still he wanted to make sure we take that picture taken. The right side is, of course, I pulled from the school's Facebook page, and that's yeah, it has changed a lot by now, but yeah, in the early years, that's how the school looked like, and yeah, and I'm very grateful for that school because that shaped my whole journey and my education career in general. So I studied in Little Angel School in my hometown for the first up to grade 10, and then after that I moved to the capital city, Kathmandu, for my higher education. The school is Buddha Nilkantha School. It's yeah, it's really one of the renowned school in the country, and historically, the school was established for so Nepal has had a monarchy system where the king was the head of state, and Nepal also had really good relationship with the British in the past. So the school was originated primarily for the British family and the royalty for their educational purpose. And then over the time it changed and it started providing scholarship to kids all over the country. And it's a private residential school, and kids from yeah, all the way they get scholarship to study starting grade 4. So it goes from grade 4 until grade 12. And yeah, so there is a very diverse group of kids there, and yeah, I got to study the last 2 years of my high school. And after going to school is when I came to St. Olaf College. That's where I met Linnea. So these are some pictures we took recently when we were there. We went to visit Buranganta School. Yeah, one of our really good friends, Subab, he was our tour guide while we were in Kathmandu. And the picture on the right is actually my dorm room the first year of school when I was there. I had 2 roommates, and yeah, I have very fond memories of that dorm room. These pictures we took them at Buddhist stupa. It's located at the top of the hill, right nearby the Buranganta School, and yeah, actually, it's the drive getting up there is pretty nerve-wracking because it's very narrow, narrow roads, and there is no guardrails or anything, so you can see the cliff, which is very steep, and yeah, you should ask Mark all about that, the drive. On top of so the stupa, and actually the funny thing about the stupa is we had our driver who was who was with us our whole trip, and he is the person who carried more than 40% of the construction materials while building the stupa. Yeah, and at the end he was the one who delivered the shrine all the way at the top. So he was telling us the story at some point, and yeah, it was amazing to hear. Yeah, here is another picture of the stupa at the top of the hill, and you can see the Kathmandu Valley out in the distance. So yeah, now that I have gone through some of my childhood memories and stories, I will have Linnea get started on our journey, and yeah.
This. Yeah. Perfect. All right, namaste everyone. I'll be talking about our journey, which was a little hectic at the start there. So we started in Minneapolis, and we were supposed to be flying to Philadelphia. But on the way, about halfway through, we had to land due to some mechanical issues. So we landed in Ohio. Not very fun. And so then, because we missed our flights connecting from Philadelphia to Qatar, we had to reschedule all of those flights. We flew from Minneapolis to Ohio, to New York, to India, to Kathmandu. So it was kind of a roundabout way. We did get there eventually, but the picture on the left, you can see me holding up our passport, and that's in the New Delhi airport, which was a really interesting. We got to see India for a little bit there, which was cool. And then the picture on the right is just a little screenshot from Google Earth. You can kind of see, this isn't the way that we flew, but it's just kind of showing how Nepal is pretty much exactly across the globe from us. So I thought that was a pretty cool thing to see. And we landed in Kathmandu, and we had some lunch with our friend Subhav that we saw earlier, who lives in Kathmandu. We met him at St. Olaf. Nikesh didn't go to school with him. He went to a UWC program. So we all met at St. Olaf, and so he kind of just welcomed us there, had a little lunch in Kathmandu, and then we left right away. So that's us, packed in the car. We all took one car. We had our driver, Raju Dai. Dai is an honorific, so his name is actually Raju, who was driving, and they drive on the right side of the car. And then, so my dad had the front seat, and then Nikesh, my mom, and I were all crammed in the back. And the roads are not very nice. There's lots of potholes, and there is a lot of major flooding as well, so the roads were terrible. And so we drove from Kathmandu to Chitwan, which was a 3.5, 4-hour drive of like bumping around, pretty much on a gravel road with lots of potholes. Very fun. We got to bump around and play Jello in the back. So Chitwan is a really cool, beautiful place, about halfway, like I said, from Kathmandu to Parasi, which was our end goal. And it's in the middle region. So like Nika said before, there's the 3 sections of Nepal. Kathmandu's in the valley, and then Chitwan is more in the middle. So it's more of a temperate zone jungle. And so in Chitwan, we stayed at this really nice hotel, and we went on a jungle tour of the national park that is in Chitwan. So you can see on the left there, the truck that took us on our jungle safari had the covered roof, and on the right you can see one of the rhinoceros that we saw. And here is also one of the rhinoceros kind of chilling in the water there. They were hiding from each other. Rhinoceros are very aggressive, especially and territorial with one another. Do I just click on the link? Okay. Sorry, I'm not the computer expert. That is Nikesh.
Wait, so let's explain this. I'm sorry. So
Hop on in.
hop on in, yes. As we were doing this, I was kind of bummed because, we saw some deer and a chicken.
And some more deer.
And some more deer. I'm like, I could see these in Minnesota. But then all of a sudden we drove by this guy chilling in the water. We're like, okay, that's interesting. And then our guide we kind of saw in the distance a rhino running by, and our guide's like, he's after somebody because they're very territorial. I think that's why that guy is just chilling in the water. And so then we did get the opportunity to see this.
Can I make it full screen, or should it play like this?
Yeah, can you play it? Full screen.
Okay. That was my dad, yeah.
Now here comes the big guy. Oh. This is when our guide said, shh, and I sat down.
Yeah, so you can see him kind of chasing the other guy away. And I don't know if you could hear him, he was kind of like huffing. You can sniff. They have a very good sense of smell, which we didn't know. And so he was sniffing out the other rhinoceros. And so we decided to follow them, which made me a little nervous, but it was fine. So I'll get back here. All right. There we go. So yeah, that was really special. We were so close to those rhinoceros. It was kind of terrifying. Like my mom said, she kind of just sat down. Because before we were talking about this, the guide was saying how he had been almost attacked by a rhinoceros. And so we were a little nervous. We were like, okay, we hope we see one, but kind of far away. And so we were from here probably to that last table over there away from it. And they are huge. So it was a little nerve-wracking, but a really cool, exciting, special experience. Also in Nepal, we saw some elephants in Chitwan, and this is at our hotel that we were staying in. They had a sanctuary nearby, so you can see.
Howdy. Good morning, Mike. Good morning, good morning.
Yeah, they're going for a graze, so you can kind of see the little baby elephant there, and then some of the older elephants as well. They only had female elephants on the reserve. Male elephants can be very territorial and aggressive. And the wild elephants, we didn't see any wild elephants. They are migratory, so they migrate from India into Nepal and back again. And the male elephants that are wild will kill the male domestic elephants. So they didn't have any on the reserve. Let's see. Oh, sorry, I skipped that one. I tapped it. Thank you. There are also tigers in Chitwan. We didn't see any, thankfully, but we put in on the left, I don't know if you can see very well on the screen, but it's a tiger footprint. So there was one in the area recently, which was kind of cool. And there were signs everywhere that said Tiger Zone, which was pretty ominous. And then we saw, like we said, a lot of really cool flora and fauna. On the left is a really beautiful butterfly. We saw them everywhere. I don't know what it's called. I'm sorry. We tried looking it up, and it didn't have anything. And then on the right is the natural form of turmeric, which is what you can find in Nepali and Indian cuisine. But that's what it looks like in the wild. And then we finally made it to Parasi, after another, 4-hour drive or something like that. Of bumpy roads again. And we made it there, and Parasi is a pretty decent-sized town, and so on the left you can see my mom. Nikesh and I were going, and Nikesh's dad, to a fruit center when we did some shopping around, and we stopped and got some freshly squeezed juice. They squeezed it right in front of you, and then we just sat and had a little cup of it. It was delicious. And we did a lot of shopping, and there were grasshoppers everywhere. I had one down the back of my shirt. I'm scarred for life, but it's okay. And then in the middle, you can see Nani and Bindu, Nikesh's mother, cooking up dinner or lunch. That's kind of her love language. She didn't let us do anything. We couldn't even rinse off our own dishes. She's very much the homemaker. So every morning she would make us chai, and we'd have a little plate of nuts, and then we'd have real breakfast, and then we'd have a snack later, and then she'd make us a full cooked lunch. And then we'd have a snack later, and then we'd have dinner, and then we'd have food after dinner. So she did a lot of cooking. So that's kind of a scene that we would see every day, as Mummy cooking up over the stove in the kitchen. And then on the right, Nikesh had mentioned before that we were visiting during Dashain. And during Dashain, they have these bamboo swings that they put up everywhere. So there's my mom swinging on one of those swings. They're very popular with the kids. You can get pretty high up there, and they're made out of bamboo, so they're pretty wiggly. But it was really fun to see. And then Parasi, the men had a spa day. The women, we kind of just hung out at home and relaxed. But the guys, they went and got a haircut. So this is a video of my dad. It's a little bit different to our haircuts. So yeah, my dad said he really liked it. It was very refreshing. I don't know if I would like my head being waxed like that, but he said it felt great, so.
Yeah, so we went to the haircut place, and Mark didn't know what kind of haircut to get, so the guys showed us like 10 pictures that were hung up on the wall, and then Mark said, all right, I want number 6. So apparently that's the number 6 hairstyle. Yeah, and the head massage is just a relaxing part of the after haircut. Yeah, and they also put pretty refreshing hair on the head as well. So especially it's so hot over there, the oil helps to keep you cool with the heat.
Yeah, the temperature was around 85 degrees every day, very hot. And Nepali cuisine, I kind of spoke about how Mummy was in the kitchen the majority of the time we were there. On the left, you have a picture of chai, also known as chia. It's a black tea we had it with buffalo's milk, but you also can have it with cow's milk or whatever kind of milk you have available. But black tea steeped with turmeric, black pepper, cumin, and cardamom. And you kind of all mash it together. It's delicious. And some ginger too as well. And you can add kind of whatever pizzazz, take out whatever you want. And then on the right you have another national, like Nepali stereotypical dish. It's called thali. It's a platter. So on the bottom you can see that this is you can have it in meat or you can have it a vegetable. There's a lot of vegetarians in Nepal. So this is a meat one you can have. So with chicken, and then will you point on the thing that I'm talking about? Or I'll do it. Okay. So chicken, dal, which is a lentil soup. And then we have veg mix, and then saag, which is a leafy green that they blanch or boil. And then you have an achar, which is just sauce, basically, so you can kind of mix it all together. And then this is like a dessert, yogurty dessert. And then here is a lassi, which is a a yogurt drink. This is just a plain lassi, but you can have mango, strawberry, lychee. It's very tasty. And then on the left, you can see this is one of our after dinner snacks, which consists of these roasted soybeans, chicken, and then these are cucumbers in a sauce. And then, of course, my dad shared Buffalo Trace bourbon. I don't know if we have any bourbon fans out here, but he shared that with with Nikesh's dad. And this is Rajudai, our driver. So we had some really fun times drinking together and eating these really nice dishes. And then on the right, we have momo, which is a very famous Nepali street food. So it's kind of like a dumpling. So it's a wrap, and then on the inside you can either have a vegetable mix with cauliflower, potatoes, peas, kind of whatever, or you can have a pork or buffalo or chicken filling. This is very tasty.
Can I just take a photo?
Yeah.
I have never seen as much rice consumed as I did by these Nepalis. It was amazing. But of course, we use spoons, but they, mostly just use their fingers. I don't know how they did it, but with the rice, and you just combine everything together, and it is so good. And most of the stuff that Bindun used to cook, they just went to their backyard because they have just all the gardens and everything there. So it was fabulous. Sorry, had to say that.
Oh yeah, they have this big, I don't know if we have any pictures of it. I don't think we do. But in the backyard, they have this big, beautiful garden where they grow saag, pretty much every vegetable you can think of, eggplants, okra, cauliflower. It's kind of amazing. All right, and then we're talking about religion. I kind of covered it up with that picture, sorry. We're talking about the religions of Nepal. So the two main religions of Nepal are Hinduism and Buddhism, but then they also have a little bit of Christianity and Sikhism and Muslims as well. On the left, we have Durga. She is a warrior goddess. You can see she's riding a tiger, and then she has 8 arms, actually. And each arm she's holding a different symbolic thing. So she has a knife, a trisul, she's holding a conch. And then on the right, this is the Buddha. We visited Lumbini, and I'll talk more about that in another slide. These are 2 different Buddhist things. So on the left, we have Mahakal, who is a wrathful or vengeful impersonation of the Buddha. So you can see he has the skull crown on his head, and he has the 3 eyes, and he's the Buddhist counterpart of the Hindu god Shiva, who is the destroyer, but also the preserver. So it's kind of unique how you kind of have those 2 counterparts. And then on the right, you can kind of see over here, this is a stupa. And so you can see the Tibetan prayer flags. Each flag, each color represents a different element. So air, water, fire, earth. And then you can also see the Buddha eyes.
Is that concrete?
Yep, it's made out of concrete. And then here we have more Buddhist statues or murtis. On the left, this is an honorific, so it's behind a case, and they have the shawls behind it, which has prayers printed, and you can see the flowers on the Buddha's head as well, and all these little offerings down there. And then this is a different type of diya, or what is it called? Where you can...
Offering?
Yep, offering. Place for offerings. And so you can see, there's a word and I can't think of it. I'll think of it probably in an hour. You can see it's covered in red. This is another form of blessing that they put upon it, and they do this every day, so you can kind of see how it dribbles onto the ground there. And then we have Lord Shiva. I kind of talked about him earlier. He is the preserver. He can be also pretty wrathful, so you can see he holds the trisul, and then he also holds some fire and a drum, and he's one of the more wild gods. He's one of the big 3, so in Hinduism, they have the 3 kind of like trinity, like we have. So they have Shiva, they have Vishnu, and I always forget the last guy's name, Brahma. Those are the top 3. And then on the right, we have another diya. You can see some of the flower offerings and some candles, and they also do this every day. You can kind of see the red on the right as well. And then we have 2 different types of celebrations going on. So on the left, this is a temple that we visited in Durbar Square. It's one of the old king's temples. And you can, I don't know if you can see it very well here, but there is some intestines that were dried that they hung up on the door, and they're from a water buffalo, and it was from a celebration for Ma Kali, who is another warrior goddess. She's very fierce, and this is supposed to be one of her necklaces on the door. And then on the right, we also have another thing for Kali. This is from Dashain. So at the end of the festival, they take the murtis, or the goddesses, or the gods, and they put them in the river to release them back into their natural form.
So they create them, they make them.
Yep, they make them before each festival out of wood and plaster, and then they decorate them and paint them, and then place them in an honorific place. And then at the end of the festival, they have this big celebration, so you can see all these people. There was music, and they were dancing, and then they take it to the river, and they sink her in the river. It's actually really cool. And here we have the Shiva temple. It was bright orange and beautiful up in the mountains. And so you can see here the monkeys and their sign, "Beware of monkey." The monkeys are very mischievous and will, if you have like fruit for offering, they will come after you to take the fruit. So you have to be kind of on the lookout for them. Let's see. And so this is another Durga. She's riding a tiger in this one. And then this is Ganesh, who is another major god. He has an elephant head and a human body, and he is venerated for new beginnings and wisdom. And this is another part of the Shiva temple. So this is a symbol for Shiva. It's called the Shiva Linga, and it's the non-personified form of Shiva. So we kind of have the cross symbol for our god, and they have the Shiva Linga. So you can see there's money, there's a bell, and some candles, and the diya down here. And then we have the Naga, which is the snake, kind of like friend or counterpart to Shiva. So they also bless and venerate that snakes as well, specifically the cobra. And then we visited Lumbini, which is the birthplace of the Buddha. So you can see these little boys and young men here. They go and live at the temple for, I believe, a year. Can be longer, can be shorter, kind of depends on the family. And you can also see some monkeys in the background, but it was really cool to see this. And this is another part of Lumbini. This is the main temple that we visited, so you can see it's gorgeously painted. Every inch was covered in paint and gloriously decorated. And on the right, you can see the top here, kind of that we saw in the Goomba earlier. That's where the main Buddha is held. And then this is the Panchasila. I'll read it in case you can't read it in the back. It's kind of like one of the main focal points in Buddhism. It says, I observe refraining from killing any living beings. I observe refraining from taking what does the owner not give. I observe refraining from committing sexual misconduct. I observe refraining from telling lies. I observe refraining from taking any intoxicant or drug. And then on the right here, we have the Buddha when he was being tempted during his meditation. So these is... Buddhism is a very stoic and beautiful religion. This is kind of one of their main meditations and focuses. And then we have the Badnath Stupa. This is back in Kathmandu. This is one of the main Buddhist pilgrimage points. It's very famous. You can see the Tibetan flags up here again and the Buddhist eyes. And people come from all over the world, specifically from Tibet. You can see a bunch of monks down here. And you walk around the temple clockwise, saying your prayers.
They would have prayer beads, too.
Yep, and they have the mala beads. I don't know if we have any pictures of people wearing them, but they're these little nuts that grow on trees, and they dry them out, and they string them up, kind of like prayer beads. And then this is the Paushpanath temple in Kathmandu. It's one of the most famous Hindu temples. And here it's huge. So we have a bunch of different buildings, part of it, and then here this is where they also perform cremations. So the family will bring the body here, and it's one of the most holy sites, so it's a huge honor to be cremated here. And down at the bottom you can see there is a cremation that is happening, so it's all live and very public, so you can see lots of families, and it's really beautiful the way that the family gets together to mourn and give back this loved one's body. And these are some more monkeys. We saw lots and lots and lots of monkeys. They're very mischievous and will take all the offerings that you leave out. So they're, very sneaky and are very cute as well. There's a little baby one on the right, and you can see they're sitting by all those offerings that have been spilled by the monkeys. All right, and that's kind of where we ended our thing here. Does anyone have any questions?
You want to hit the lights, Mike? That was Pastor Mike. Yeah, that's Mark.
Yeah, that's my dad on Woz motorcycle. Yeah.
What kind of spices were you able to bring back?
Oh, my dad brought back a whole bunch when we were.
Pastor Mike, you want to share?
Yeah, Pastor Mike got some of them.
Black cardamom, green cardamom, cumin,
Cinnamon.
Cinnamon.
cinnamon. I think those were the four major.
Turmeric.
Turmeric, yeah, that was it.
And then a really common spice is timur or Szechuan pepper, which is also very spicy and delicious. Yeah.
Nikesh, your native language would be Nepali?
No, my native language is Bhojpuri, which is a regional language in Nepal. Nepal is very diverse in terms of ethnicity as well. And even in my hometown, you can see there are like 10 different languages being spoken. So Bhojpuri is my native language. Nepali is the national language of Nepal.
Hindu? Do they speak Hindi?
No, Hindi.
Hindi.
And since it's very close to India, there is also people also understand Hindi as well, which is the national language of India. Yeah.
Your government, is it a royalty kind of ruling or more of a elected officials?
Yeah, now we have more elected officials. That the monarchy ended like 10 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, Diane.
Can you talk about your clothing?
Or clothing.
All right, you.
Oh, I don't want to go. Here you go.
I'll do it. Okay, so we are all wearing a type of kurta or kurti. The variation of the spelling is if you're a man or if you're a woman. So right now I'm wearing a kurti. It's more of a dress. Oh yeah, sorry, so you can see me. So it comes in usually 2 or 3 parts. So it's kind of nice. We're wearing both the different types for women. So mine's more of a dress style. So it has the wider skirt. My mom's is more of the tunic style, so it has the 2 different parts. So they're also, they come with pants. And then mine also came with a dupatta, which is the scarf. So a lot of women, you could kind of see it in some of the pictures, they'll cover their head to keep them from being too hot. When we were in the village, I was wearing this outfit, and I didn't have mine covered because I was, like, not used to covering my head when it gets hot. I would just wear a hat, but I didn't bring a hat. Anyways, so one of the aunties was like, put this up. So she kind of just tugged it up over my head like this. So I look kind of silly, but yeah, so you can see the women, and then there's also women wear saris, which is this beautiful one long piece of fabric, and then they fold it with a bunch of different pleats. And it'll be wrapped around their body like that. And then for men, they also have the kurta, which is the tunic style. So you can see that has the 2 different sides here, and then it comes with pants, and it has a higher neckline, and the buttons, sometimes they have buttons. The buttons are hidden. And then men also have different suits that they can wear as well. It's more of the Eastern style suit, so it'll look kind of like the kurta with the neckline and the shirt. And then they also have a topi, which is a typical Nepali style hat. I don't think we have any pictures of you wearing the topi. Oh, will you play the picture slideshow? We also have some pictures to run in the background. Yeah. But the topi is what men would wear if you're Nepali. No other country wears it. It's a hat that you wear. It's very fitted onto your head, and it has kind of like a triangular top. So yeah, this is another thing that we can have in the background. Does anyone have any other questions?
Also, like I have, a lot of pashmina. They're everywhere. So this one's a little more softer, and so yeah. Or when you go shopping, they're everywhere. Mm-hmm.
Are they cotton or silk?
These are cotton.
Linen and cotton.
When some of them are a linen blend. They don't really wear silk for the kurtis. That's more for saris. And so that's what they would wear in the summertime is a silk sari, or in the winter they have wool as well. Because they would think it's really cold. It's like 60 degrees. So we would be talking to his parents, and they're wearing jackets inside the house, and they have scarves wrapped around their heads. And this was when we were having our cold snap, so it was like -30 with wind chill. And we were like, oh, it's really cold over there. How cold is it? They're like, it's 60 degrees. And we're like, that's t-shirt weather. And so we told them, and they were saying, wah! That's kind of their wah! That's their exciting sound. But yeah, it gets not very cold. When we were there, like I said, it was 85 degrees, but that's also in the south where it's really hot. In the middle, it's more temperate, especially in the valley. It only gets up to 75, 80, I think the warmest. And then up in the north in the Himalayas is where it gets really cold and snowy, especially, in the Himalayas with Mount Everest and a lot of really tall, big, beautiful mountains.
So, as we're talking religion, in Nikes's home, his mom, she'll have a little Buddhist kind of a altar, but also Hindu. So it's kind of both. They do a lot of Hinduism and Buddhism. There's the hat. A lot of that is intertwined, and it's quite beautiful, actually. Yeah, Tim.
Yes, was St. Olaf a shock?
In some ways, yeah. But I also had.
The question was St. Olaf a shock?
Yeah, because first time in the country, but also since I went to the residential school in Kathmandu for the last 2 years of my school, I was already away from home, so I was already in the mentality of living in a residential school in a dorm room with friends and having that connection. But yeah, I was able to transition a lot of that experience from there. But also the different culture and a different food and all that was definitely took some getting used to.
Could I say something about the food? A lot of Nepalis, especially some of the boys, and when they come to the U.S., they get a lot more freedom with the food that they eat. So our friend Subhav, when he came to the United States, was very excited to try a hamburger because they don't eat beef because it's a venerated holy animal. And so when they came to the States, they're like, oh, I'm so excited to try a beef hamburger because they see it in all of like the social media and in movies and stuff like that. So they're all very excited to try a hamburger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you choose St. Olaf?
Yeah, so in the Burangantoi school, we have a history of a lot of students applying to the school in the US because US has one of the exceptional school system, and they're also really friendly with offering scholarships to international students, which is the key part because Nepal is not as rich as wealthy as US or anything like that, so scholarship plays a big part. And so though I chose St. Olaf because I had some connection in the school because I knew a couple of people who went to St. Olaf from my high school, and we also had a admission person, David Wagner, who visited Burangantoi school, and he had a big presentation of St. Olaf, and he spoke really good things about the math and the computer science program, which I was interested in. And so I ended up applying to schools, and I ended up working really well with the scholarship, and and the couple of people that I knew at school as well.
Oh, what were you going to say?
No, it's finished.
Oh, I was too.
Oh.
So, as a child, his dad told us the story that Nikesh was always interested in computers, and so he would be given lunch money, and he would take that lunch money and go to like a computer lab of sorts, a cyber cafe, and he would spend his money. He won't eat lunch. That's how the guy keeps so skinny. But to then learn more about that computer. There he is. And his cousin. So that's he got that's how he learned a little bit more.
Yeah, that's how I got into computers. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What were you?
That was it. Big computer.
And that's what he does.
That's what he does now. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, Carol.
Nikesh, are your parents planning to come here now and experience this contrast?
They would love to. US is pretty strict with visitor visas. Yeah, so they it's really difficult to get a visitor visa. It's up to the discretion of the embassy officer. And in the past they had applied for a visa during my graduation, but unfortunately they didn't get it, so they weren't able to visit. And then back in our wedding, we were going through COVID, and then they had paused all the so they weren't able to apply at all that time. But they do have their upcoming interview in February, so we'll see how it goes. But they would love to just see and come here and see the distinction and see Connie's and Mark's house and see where we live, see our dogs, and all the
Dogs. Yeah, that's.
Oh yeah, they are really big fans.
Those are our grandbabies right now. Yeah. So if you realize, just a second, Marilyn. So when we went, Nikesh hadn't seen face to face his parents for 8 years, and then you also think about the fact that he would go away for 2 years, and so would just come back on some breaks, and it had been a long time since he'd actually seen his parents, because they retire pretty early. Yeah, they work hard. They work Sunday through Friday, and so they are both retired. His mom, she didn't work, but obviously she did. She keeps the home, but. And so you can see how, maybe the government would say there's nothing to hold you in Nepal. You have your 2 sons here in the United States, But they do, because they're very invested in the community, rents out their land, also does a lot in their own community. And so, yeah. Marilyn.
Were you introduced to Christianity, and has the Bible been translated into your language?
Yeah, growing up, we had some introduction to Christianity from school, and also we had a church nearby, actually, my hometown, and we had some people who used to, I think from Germany, who used to come there and just give us some pamphlets and just talk more about Christianity. That's about it. I don't.
It's been translated.
Yeah, I think it has been translated because, like Linnea mentioned, the Christianity is also some people do follow Christianity in the country. It has been translated to the language as well.
Wycliffe, maybe?
Wycliffe, yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm kind of culturally illiterate, but I notice sometimes you have a marking on your forehead. I don't.
Talk about, yeah.
So that's called a tika or a bindu. It's the dot that you wear. It's a form of a blessing. So during certain religious festivals, like in Dashain, you can see there's the giant red clump of rice. So it's a mix of a red food dye and ground up rice that you put on your head. And that's right there, actually. So you can see it. It actually dyed my forehead red for a little bit. But it's a blessing that they your elders will put on your forehead as a blessing into the new year. So she prays on you while they do it. And so all the elders will do it to you. We had some neighbors come over, and Nikes's parents gave them the blessing for that. So there's a lot of community aspect in Nepal. So that's a blessing that you have with that. And then, I don't know if you can see it on some of these, but when we visited a Buddhist temple, they also did the tika on your forehead up higher. I don't know the significance on the different spots. I know here's the third eye. Up here, I think, is for knowledge because it's closer to the top of your head. So they also do it in Buddhism, and then women also will wear it as a style. So you can see them in some of our pictures. I have different colored stickers of the tika. So you wear that every day. You can see there's one up there. And so women will wear it, some different sizes, different colors, kind of doesn't matter the color or the style, but it's opening the third eye, knowledge, and accepting those and energies around you.
Explain the religion of Hindu and the gods, but...
Yeah, so Hinduism is a really beautiful religion. There are many, 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 many gods, but it's technically a monotheistic religion. So kind of how we have God, but it's the three in one. There's God, Brahma, and then they have Brahman, Ganesh, Vishnu, Shiva. All of those different gods are different representations of Brahma as a whole.
Expressions that you would need,
Yep, so whatever you need in the moment, strength, wisdom, feminine energy, feminine power, those are all different counterpoints of God as a whole. So which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And different cultures also, like different subgroups in Nepal, celebrate and worship different gods. So the Yadavs, Nikesh, his family worships Krishna, which is an avatar of Shiva, right? Yeah, of Shiva. So he is a blue-skinned god who loves to eat yogurt. Some people actually put him very similar to Jesus. He's like that warm, kind-hearted God made flesh. So he plays the flute. He's very fun-loving and gives you a lot of love. That's Krishna that we would worship at home. And then they also would have the pantheon of like Shiva. So Mummy has, like my mom said, the altar of Krishna and Shiva, and then they also would venerate Durga. So each household will have several different gods that they would pray to at different times.
Do they have community or communal worship?
Yes, so communal worship every...
Yeah, like church.
they'd have chat or puja, which is a worship service where the priests would come and they'd do their meditations and chants and give you blessings as well. So this is kind of a blessing that everyone would give. So Mummy and Bua, when you're on the phone with them at Nani, you might see her holding her hands up. This is a blessing. So the priests will do that as well. And then there's a lot of incense. Oh, hello. Thank you. Incense burning and the diyas, the candles. During those services, and they don't really sing songs like in church that we do. The priests will do a lot of chanting, and then you give your offerings to the god of flowers, food. You pour milk over the deity. What else? And lots of blessings. And then you also have major festivals that you'd have different worship services for that as well. Yeah. Thank you. Before you head out, I also put some bowls that our auntie has made and Nikis's grandmother, so you can take a look out. They're handmade from wool. And then we also have the prayer reels and some books if you want to check those out as well. But thank you for coming, everyone.
Thank you.